Beneath 35 million people, Jakarta is collapsing. 4 meters of ground lost in 3 decades, half the city already below sea level. So Indonesia made a decision no modern nation has attempted at this scale: abandon its capital and engineer a new one from scratch, deep in the forests of Borneo. But what it takes to build a city in the jungle may rival the crisis it was designed to escape. Greater Jakarta is a city under siege from its own weight. With 35 million people packed into the basin and 10 million crowded into the urban core, the pressure on the land below is relentless. Over the last 30 years, the northern districts have sunk nearly 4 meters, a vertical collapse that outpaces any sea level rise and leaves entire neighborhoods vanishing below the tide line. Groundwater pumping runs unchecked. Each year, wells across the city draw out some 36 million cubic meters of water, draining the aquifer faster than nature can refill it. The ground responds by caving in, compressing the soft alluvial soil and buckling the streets above. Floods have become an annual certainty, not a risk. Half of Jakarta now sits below mean sea level, and in the wet season, the city's pumps and walls fight a losing battle against the rising water. In the worst-hit districts, subsidence rates reach up to 20 centimeters a year. Buildings tilt, roads fracture, and drainage systems buckle under the strain. The city's infrastructure, already stretched by the demands of a sprawling population, now faces a threat it was never designed to withstand. The ground itself is slipping away. This is not a crisis of inconvenience. It is a slow-motion disaster that threatens the continuity of government, the safety of millions, and the future of Indonesia's economic heart. The scale is staggering. No patchwork of embankments or pumps can reverse the loss. Jakarta's collapse has forced a reckoning. Survival now demands a response beyond repair, one that reaches far beyond the city's sinking edge. By the early 1980s, Jakarta's collapse was no longer just a local warning passed among city engineers. The first systematic leveling campaigns began in 1982, charting vertical drops across the city at centimeter precision. Over 15 years, these surveys revealed a sobering pattern. The northern districts, pressed by urban weight and relentless groundwater extraction, had lost 80 centimeters by 1991 and doubled that loss by 1997. Hasanuddin Z. Abidin, a leading geodesist, became the public face of this mounting evidence, pushing for more rigorous, continuous measurement. From 1997 to 2002, GPS stations anchored across Jakarta confirmed the leveling data. The ground was not only sinking, it was doing so at a rate that outpaced previous estimates, with some sectors dropping nearly half a meter in just 5 years. By the late 2010s, the arrival of satellite-borne unsavable added a new layer of clarity. C-band radar, processed through small baseline subset analysis, mapped the city's deformation in fine detail. Hotspots in the northwest and central east losing more than 20 millimeters per year, with cumulative settlements surpassing 3 meters along the coast. These converging datasets, leveling, GPS, unsavable, produced a high-resolution map that left little room for debate. The science was unambiguous. Jakarta's fate was now quantified, its future projected in stark relief. In April 2019, President Joko Widodo convened his cabinet. The announcement was blunt: Indonesia would move its capital to Borneo. The technical briefing that followed in June included the 4-meter subsidence map and flood risk scenarios, shifting the government's posture from patchwork repairs to a wholesale strategic retreat. Jakarta was no longer treated as a city to be fixed, but as a liability to be managed, a problem so thoroughly measured that only relocation could answer the scale of the threat. Nusantara is not simply a new seat of government. It is a deliberate counter-design to everything Jakarta has become, a city engineered to avoid the failures that made relocation necessary in the first place. At the heart of the blueprint stands the Garuda-shaped governmental complex, a soaring emblem intended to project sovereign identity on the world stage. The palace and ministries are arranged in the form of Indonesia's national bird, a gesture that fuses political symbolism with architectural spectacle. Beneath the surface, Nusantara's planners have specified an underground utility corridor, an unseen backbone for water, power, and telecommunications. This network is designed to shield vital systems from the acidic, peat-laden soils of East Kalimantan, where organic layers can run more than 10 meters deep. To anchor the city's largest structures, engineers have mapped hard strata at depths of 20 to 30 meters, dictating that deep pile foundations must be driven through unstable ground to reach reliable support. The ground beneath Nusantara will not be left to chance. Every tower and transit line is calculated to avoid the slow-motion collapse that doomed Jakarta. Above ground, the city is mapped around a zero-emission transit core. Electric buses, autonomous pods, and a planned light rail loop form the circulatory system of daily life. The goal is to eliminate the gridlock and air pollution that have choked Jakarta for decades. Planners promise a city where mobility is both seamless and silent, powered by renewable energy and monitored by a digital nervous system. Perhaps the most ambitious promise is the mandate that 75% of Nusantara's built-up area remain green. This is more than a design rule. It is a political statement enforced by satellite monitoring and written into law in 2024. Forests, parks, and water corridors are meant to buffer the city from flood and heat, while signaling a new model of urban coexistence with nature. Whether these ambitions can withstand the realities of rapid construction and political pressure remains an open question, but the blueprint itself is a direct inversion of Jakarta's ad hoc sprawl, a city designed to resist the very forces that forced Indonesia to begin again. The ground claimed for Nusantara is neither empty nor simple to acquire. Penajam Pasir Utara sits at the heart of Borneo's lowland forests, where Dayak and Kutai communities trace their history through the land's rivers, groves, and ancestral graves. Customary rights, mapped across more than 100,000 hectares, intersect with the official footprint of the new capital, yet many claims remain unresolved, and negotiations over compensation or recognition have grown tense. For some, the promise of a modern city brings the threat of losing not just territory, but identity itself. The forest, too, resists easy transformation. The planned city overlaps critical orangutan migration corridors, slicing through one of the last strongholds for Bornean great apes. Environmental assessments warn of habitat fragmentation and the risk of isolating populations already under pressure. To counter this, planners propose canopy bridges, rope walkways suspended above new highways, and a network of protected green corridors. Yet the effectiveness of these safeguards remains unproven, especially as construction accelerates and the urban footprint expands. Beneath the surface, the peat swamp soils store vast reserves of carbon. Draining or disturbing these layers could release up to 5 million tons of carbon dioxide, undermining Indonesia's climate pledges. Biochar pilot projects and peat rehabilitation are written into the master plan, but their true scale lags behind the pace of clearing. The cost of Nusantara is measured not only in concrete and steel, but in the fragile balance between ambition and the land's own memory. Here, the forest is not a blank slate. It is a test of whether a capital can be built without erasing what came before. The decision to leave Java behind is not only a logistical feat, but a profound act of national repositioning. For centuries, Indonesia's political and economic life has orbited the island's western edge, a legacy of colonial mapping that placed power close to the trade winds and the old Dutch ports. Nusantara, by contrast, rises on the far shore of Borneo, almost equidistant from the country's eastern and western frontiers. Its site in East Kalimantan sits less than 100 kilometers from the Makassar Strait, the deep, calm waterway that slices between Borneo and Sulawesi. Here, the archipelago's true center is not a theoretical point on a map, but a strategic vantage at the crossroads of Asia-Pacific trade. The Makassar Strait is more than a geographic feature. Over the last 15 years, vessel traffic through these waters has climbed by nearly 30%, with ultra-large container ships threading a route that bypasses the crowded, piracy-prone Malacca Strait to the west. Jakarta's old port is hemmed in by silt and congestion, and Nusantara's proximity to Makassar offers a direct line to the world's busiest shipping lanes, with fewer bottlenecks and greater depth for modern fleets. Naval planners see the advantage clearly. A capital here enables faster response to maritime threats, better surveillance of east-west passage, and a logistical backbone for a nation of islands stretching over 5,000 kilometers. But this pivot is not only about ships and cargo. By anchoring the capital in Borneo, Indonesia signals a break from colonial-era centralization, asserting a sovereign identity rooted in the whole archipelago. The financial model mirrors this ethos. Instead of relying on a single foreign patron, the funding for Nusantara draws from a mosaic of sources, state bonds, domestic investors, and a rotating cast of foreign partners from China, Japan, the Middle East, and beyond. Each stake is kept deliberately partial, ensuring that no outside power can dictate terms or claim ownership of the project. The state orchestrates the deal, balancing diplomatic ties while holding the reins of sovereignty. In the end, Nusantara stands as more than a city in the jungle. It is a doctrine, a deliberate recentering of Indonesia's power, wealth, and vision. The Makassar Strait is not just a backdrop, but the axis on which a new chapter of maritime statecraft will turn. Right now, Indonesia is redefining itself, not just on the map, but in its ambitions. As Nusantara rises, its success or failure will echo across Southeast Asia's balance of power. The world is watching to see if a nation can truly outrun the tide. Join the conversation below.